Good morning, good evening, and wherever the sun may find you, my name is Walt, and what? This is a Monday edition of Coffee and Concepts. How the hell did this happen? And somehow we managed to wrangle Mr. TS Hottle with us this morning. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you doing this morning, Walt?
I'll let you know as soon as I get some sleep. Coming off of a night shift, so it's coffee for me until it isn't. What kind of coffee are you drinking, sir?
I got some Kona this morning. I want
Ooh,
smooth. I make sure I get a box of that every week or two.
nice. If you are familiar, would you like to discuss what makes Kona such a special blend of coffee?
Yeah, it comes from Hawaii. They grow it in that volcanic soil. And
Yes, it's so good.
very smooth coffee. I remember there was a Starbucks I used to frequent, and the manager down there was always trying to get me to buy a bag of it. Unfortunately, I was the only one at the house. This was before the days of Keurig that drank coffee, and I was not about to make an entire pot and throw out, especially Kona. Come on. But,
Right? So good. And that's the thing about Kona coffee too, because of where it's grown and the steps they take to actually create it. It's a little on the expensive side. So typical bag of coffee, you're looking at anywhere between, depending on brand, you're looking between $4 to, in some cases, $15 for a pretty good bag of coffee. Kona can usually range about $6 to $8 above that. In some cases, depending on who's making it and how it's brought over to the mainland United States, it can be even more. So yeah, that's it's a great cup of coffee, but you're going to take a little more of a hit in the wallet for it. Nicely done. So today we are from our spot on top of the majestic mountains of Kona, Hawaii. We are going to be talking about point of view, and specifically, what about point of view were you interested in?
just how to manage that. I know that's one thing I struggled with.
What gives you problems with it?
Like I was working on probably about the last 9 months working on the last Amargosa novel, doing a rewrite. And when you have multiple points of view, you have that tendency to where it tends to bloat a little bit. You think, oh, I'm going to focus on this character, and this character. But I got to make a side trip, and now it's George R.R. Martin, for good or ill, usually was pretty good about that. He would start something with a minor character's point of view, just to kind of say, hey, this is what the world's really like, and now I'm going to take you into John or Circe's point of view, and you can determine whether they're a reliable narrator or not from that. Now, in my case, I had to make side trips because there was things going on away from the main characters. I always found that incredibly difficult to manage, and I'm still working on that manuscript. I have to go back in and reinsert some scenes and go, okay, it's the back third of the story, so we're jumping into a bunch of heads. But as long as it's like one head per scene, some people have told me one head per chapter, which I think are both valid. Yeah, that's it's not like first person. The first few things I wrote were first person, and you were in one head the entire time, so you knew exactly what the limitations were.
Right on. Now, do you find first person a little easier to work with?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I mean, there's some options you have. I had a character when I was doing crime fiction. I thought, I'm done with this guy. I'm going to kill him off. Well, I was writing it first person, and I actually got the scene to work where he died. It's just like this fading moment is like, as soon as the narrative ends, he's gone. And of course, two readers who've been with me since the beginning. They got, you publish it like that, and I will never speak to you again. So I had this, so I had him like run off to New Orleans with a client. So
I think as far as like first person goes, first person is pretty much the way we all tell stories to each other in the beginning. You know, hey, I was here and I saw this and blah, 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 right? So, because I mean, obviously it's coming from your point of view. So even though people you hear a lot of times say, oh, you know, I don't think I can write in first person, you know, I think that from the beginning, that's kind of how we start. What made you start branching into other points of view out of first person?
I started doing close third, because you could still kind of have the limitations of first person where you're stuck with what that person can see and hear, and you might be able to stray just a little bit more. But it's like, you know, JT had never flown an AF-22 Falcon before, but he knew he'd probably look good crashing it, you know, that kind of thing. You can kind of slip in a little authorial snark in there without really intruding on the reader. So that kind of makes it easier to write, because then if you do have to deviate and say, okay, we're gonna go omniscient, because I want to say, you know, I don't want to get into too many heads. I just want to say, this happened, this happened, this happened, and then go back to the person and get their reaction to it. You have that option. One of the things I struggled with was when you also can go into multiple characters' heads, like in a different scene or a different chapter. The thing I always struggled with was they get POV bloat. There's a crime novel, which I think is still making rounds. The original manuscript was 115,000 words, which is enormously long for a crime novel. Because every time a new character walked in, I was like, oh, I have to give him his own plot thread now. And there was much cutting and weeping and gnashing of teeth on that one. So close third is a really great tool, but you got to be careful what you do with it.
Right on. Now, at what point do you decide whether a point of view is omniscient or not? Is that something that you kind of develop on your develop as you're writing, or do you think that's something that you should probably figure out, like in your outlining stage if you're an outliner, or early on if you're like a seat of the pants writer?
Anymore, I outline because I'm trying to write quickly. And, you know, like with the current works in progress. Those are almost entirely single point of view, which I found easier. It kind of gives it more focus. But when you get something that kind of sprawls, you know, I don't want to call it epic. That's a little too conceited, I think. But something, you know, you have a big story where you have to get into multiple heads. Sometimes it kind of helps. I kind of wish I could be like Andy Ware, where he just doesn't care whether he's writing first person or third person or... I just finished listening to The Martian again. I wanted to hear how Will Wheaton did it, which was excellent, worthy successor to R.C. Bray. And we're talking about this happened to the have, and this scene broke, and this, and of course you're sitting there going, "Oh my God, Watney is so screwed," you know. If you do that right, Tom Clancy was really good at it. Describing how the torpedo just destroyed a submarine. If you're really good at it, you can really build up dramatic tension. But I think it's like you have to have a reason to slip out a close third, or you know, sometimes I prefer to go to dramatic third, which is Jones walked in the door, did this, and then, you know, the stapler blew up and obliterated the building. So I have to write that now.
The stapler blowing up.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you got those on most staplers. You got that little rubber boot. You know, I mean, if you had to, you could pack that with plastic explosive and nobody would ever know. You know, just got to make sure you get the either the priming charge or the what do you call it, the detonator small enough. Maybe you could fit it where the staples go. Either that or somebody, you know, hits the stapler and it blows up.
office supply protection with Milton Wadhams.
We'll have to talk to Josh Hayes about that. How to incorporate explosives into a stabler. So when you're writing, what point of view do you kind of look at and say, oh, I really need to write this in point of view all the time? Like, so what's your favorite and easiest point of view to manage, and which one are you afraid of the most?
I like close third when it's a single character.
And how would you describe close third?
Close third is you can kind of see into their heads, but the character's not the narrator. You're the narrator. So you can kind of step in and out as needed. Still kind of describe what's going on. Now, I still have a tendency to use first person. Like somebody will walk in the room and say something and nobody noticed them come in. And you have to very quickly slip in a line there going, everybody turned to see, and it was Smith, holding a machete, Why Smith? He's got a knife fetish. I don't know.
That would be me.
Okay, I'll change that character's name to Walt. How's that?
Thank you.
I already got a part low on a Handley in the first two. So, close third I think is one I get the most use out of because it kind of forces me to, show instead of tell, or if I have to tell, it's like going, he saw this and it looked like this, and then you can jump right back into the narrative. Again, first person, it actually kind of limits it, especially it kind of hurts word count too. Because I notice the more points of view you have, the better if you have to get that word count up, it works better. Dramatic third, I'd love to do something in dramatic third, but it's increasingly difficult to do that because I'm used to kind of like going, and he thought this, and then jump right back into the narrative. You don't have that option for interior monologue. It's almost as hard as I think first person.
And which point of view scares you the most?
I very rarely use it. Omniscient, because you can get stuck in that and start going into reams and reams of description. It's fine to do the little Stephen King, take a side trip, and here's the history of Salem's Lot. And as long as you get back within a few paragraphs, okay, story within a story. Now that you're entertained, here's what happened.
Right on.
Blew up his stapler. Salem's Lot, but it was interesting.
Right
but,
on.
With the omniscient, you got to be very careful. I would use it in like an Andy Ware, Tom Clancy situation where you're describing the details of something happening and making it dramatic without, getting too technical about it. Although I think that's a lost cause with Clancy. Lost cause.
So if people want to find you and stalk you on the internet, what's a good place for them to do that?
I am at tshottle.com. I try to keep that website up to date, but that's what I am the chief cook and bottle washer in this operation. I have a Facebook group called Hottle's Minions, which I think during the quarantine has gotten a little light because I've been over on the coronavirus group, basically causing trouble. What I do. But I'll be back. I'll make sure I hit Hottle's Minions back and take care of the minions. So
there you go. Yeah. Right on. Well, I want to say thank you for coming on this morning for our special surprise edition of Coffee and Concepts, where we talk a little bit of reading, writing, and a little bit more. We are normally on Tuesdays, and that's probably going to happen again. But we just wanted to accommodate you because you said Mondays were a little bit easier for you. And
blame my manager.
What's that?
I said blame my manager.
Right on. It happens to the best of us. But I mean, and I got the best shot ever of you with an upside down keystroke medium mug. So this is how we create alternate universes, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Walt, and this has been Coffee and Concepts on Keystroke Medium.